Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Silmarillion Film Project. I am your co-host Dave Kale. We are back after missing last week because poor Corey was bedridden with,
Yes.
I think it was the Black Death.
It might have been, yeah.
But he has bounced back and recovered from his brief encounter with the plague, and he's still going strong. And we're ready to bring you more wonderful Silmarillion film, far more detailed than needs to be discussion and debate.
And we have a guest on the show today, right? We have a guest on the show.
Yes,
A guest podcaster.
Well, he's a recurring guest now.
That's right.
While he's in the background making whining noises and crawling around. But actually, and even more exciting, so obviously we were joined by Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, but also even more exciting is the return of Trish Lambert, the
That's
Tolkien
right.
maven.
Who's that? Memory.
That's right.
Yeah, we missed you the previous one that we recorded.
Oh,
so
I know. Corey had to come all the way to Texas to fill me in on the last
It's
one.
so
Yes.
true, yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
And
it-
we come out for Tex-Mex over fajitas. He filled me in on the whole burning of the ships thing.
It was awesome. I had real Mexican food and got to hang out with Trish, got to meet Buddha and all the dogs. It was great.
And he stayed in my very high class guest
man,
room.
4 stars. It was awesome. Yeah.
It's the front of my horse trailer.
Yeah.
It was
a
positive Yelp review.
Really cool visit to Ross Goebel. It was really fun.
And chicken fried steak. For those of you that live in the South, Corey had chicken fried steak the next morning.
I did have chicken fried steak for
okay,
breakfast.
good.
Yeah,
That's important.
exactly.
Loaded up his cholesterol and sent him on his way.
Did he have like that cream gravy that's just flour and water?
I think you did.
Oh yeah, I totally did. Yeah, it was great. And grits. I had grits with it too.
Oh, yeah, grits.
It was like the full experience. It was awesome.
His eyes were a little glazed by the time you got in the car to go to campus.
It was good. It was wonderful. Yeah, no, it was fantastic.
Well, your return couldn't possibly be more timely, Trish, because we're talking Hel Caraxa today.
Oh,
that's right.
I'm so glad I didn't miss that one.
That's right. Yeah,
yes.
we'll be embarking on the Hel Caraxa. We'll be killing off Denethor. It's going to be a big day here today.
Who would
day
out on a death march across an Arctic land bridge?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So
I'm starting to shiver just thinking about it.
Yeah. So anyway, today's episode is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get immersed in Silmarillion stuff, though, I want to do a couple quick announcements. So, of course, the first, as I've been mentioning, I was just down in Texas for lots of fun visits, and also, of course, for TexMoot, which was awesome. TexMoot was such a great event, and we had like almost 100 people at TexMoot. And it was such a beautifully run conference. It was absolutely fantastic. So excited to be down there and to see so many people, and really excited to sort of get TexMoot started, and looking forward to seeing that continue as we move forward. As I've mentioned before, this project, this regional Moot expansion project, is one of the main sort of initiatives that I am really pushing for Mythgard this year, because I have been really excited to be able to get on the road and to connect with more people. This has been something I've wanted to do forever. Trish can tell you how many years we've been, hoping to plan this kind of thing and get this off the ground, and it's happening now. So I'm so excited about it. I need
to get my butt in gear on planning Law Moot.
Well,
that's right.
We're working on that, Dave. Yeah, I'm thinking. I've got some leads for Southern California, and I'm hopeful actually that we might be able to make that happen later in this year. That's my goal. So.
All right, let me know what you need me to do.
Yes, no problem. I will definitely.
I'm going to defend my knock on wood, I'm going to defend my dissertation later this spring, so I'll have
Cool.
increased bandwidth after that.
Well, I will tell you the time frame that I would really love to see if we could get Southern California together in time would be July, so that we could actually time it with Comic-Con, so that I could drop by and visit San Diego at the same time that I'm in the area for
that's a
SoCal.
good idea.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. So July is my thought.
I'm going to have a Comic-Con pass, which probably you could borrow one day.
Excellent. Well, I might be able to sneak my way in. I'm working on that on my own, so that we could both be there. Nice. So yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right,
anyway,
we'll take this offline, but let me know what you need me to do.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah. So that one's not certain, but we've got some leads and we're working on that, and I'm really hopeful for that. You know, two that are actively in the works, two new ones that are actively in the works, are for the Southeast, based in Carolina and Charlotte, North Carolina, and then Southern California. Those are the two that are kind of in the works. However, we have a definitely planned and upcoming new moot. London Moot is next, April 28th. We are going. Yeah. We are going to England, and we are doing London Moot. So April 28th, I am so glad to be able to, I feel, I have felt great both admiration and compassion for our European friends. SilmFilm, of course, is one of the only things that Signum and Mythgard do that is actually held at a Europe-friendly time. Almost every other broadcast I do happens at 3 o'clock in the morning over in Europe. But of course, people are so long-suffering. But anyhow, I'm delighted to be able to go over there, hoping to make some really great connections, really looking forward to being able to catch up with folks over there in the UK, hopefully some people from around. I know we've got a bunch of people who are close to SilmFilm who are around there in Europe, and I hope might perhaps be able to get over to England either this year or next year to I'd love to be able to meet with you and hang out a little bit. So April 28th, if you are in the UK or Europe or can get over there, April 28th and would like an excuse to go to England, here it is. This is going to be a really, really cool event. So just to
you're going to take the kids, Corey?
No, actually, as it happens, April 20. Well, one of my kids is actually going to be on his own separate European tour. He's got this school trip where he's touring England and Belgium and Germany, and I'm like, okay, so he's going to be off, and my other kid is going somewhere else. So I'm like, fine, I'm going to schedule London Moot then. It's going to be great.
Good work.
Yeah, so it's nice. Anyway, so that's really great. But the other thing is, as I said, we're continuing to expand regional moots, and I wanted to mention 4 places where I am actively wanting to plan a gathering, but would love to find volunteers. What we really need to make a moot happen. These regional moots are really simple. They're simple one-day events. They don't have to be really complicated. Some of our planners have gone way over the top. Tex Moot was intense and wonderful. But it doesn't have to be a huge and elaborate academic conference necessarily. It can be a really, really simple and fun gathering, as we've done in some other places and at other times. But what we do need is a place, somebody to help us to connect with a venue, ideally like a college campus or something like that. And then we also need, some kind of local contact to be able to help us to make arrangements and things, somebody on the ground to help us make arrangements from there. So I would love to see, sometime later this year, maybe next year, to have regional moots in Seattle, Toronto, San Francisco, somewhere in the Bay Area there, and New Zealand. I would love to go to New Zealand or Australia, somewhere down in that direction. I know we have a bunch of people down there too that it would be really fun to be able to connect with. So anybody who is in one of those areas and is really would be really excited about the prospect of bringing a Signum and Mythgard regional moot to your area, get in touch. Send us an email at info@signumu.org and let us know, and we'll work with you and support you. No volunteers are going to be on their own with this. We have an events team who helps with a lot of the details and will provide all the information that you need. But anyway, that's so just kind of a general call for connections and volunteers there to see if we can make that happen. So that's the plan, which I am super excited about. I hope that we can get up to 6 or 7 regional moots in 2018, and by the end of 2019, I hope that we can be up to 9 or 10. Basically, so that's my goal, and it's going to be so much fun if we can do this. So, all right, and thus endeth the announcements for today. So let us get into the meat of our content here. A couple housekeeping things. First, just to put, the script team wanted me to announce that just to remind everybody or inform people, script discussions happen bi-weekly, typically on Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and all are welcome. There are links on the message board to be able to connect to the live broadcast. They're going to be scripting or doing the script outlines, of course, for on January 27th for episode 8 and February 10th for episode 9. So the just to make sure that people, especially if you happen to be new, know what's going on there. Of course, in these episodes, we do, we sort of talk about ideas, and we brainstorm and discuss sort of interesting adaptation issues from the text. Or oops, here I am moving forward. But we don't really have time to sit down and do a detailed outline. The script team is making a detailed outline. It's not a full script. It's not a fully composed script, but it is a detailed outline of the whole episode, and it's really neat to see those things taking shape. I think the script team does a really, really great job, and I always look forward to reviewing the script at the end of the season, like we did last year in season 2. So anyway, so just to open that invitation to anybody else who might be interested. Originally, the original outline for the season called for 2 battles in today's episode, in episode 9, that we would time both the battle under stars, the Feanor and the Feanorians' defeat of the orcs in the north, and time that at the same time that Bulldog and his orcs in the south are encountering the Green Elves and defeating the Green Elves, though eventually themselves being defeated. And there was, upon further review and discussion by all of our people there on the discussion boards, there was some sense that we might want to either expand the episode to make it a 2-hour episode, or maybe we want to switch up the order a little bit and spread those 2 battles out, which I thought was a very sensible suggestion. So here's a sketch outline of the last 6 episodes of the season. So episode 8 we did last time, just to kind of remind everybody of where we were with that, right? Feanor burning the ships, Círdan sees the flames of the ships, Fingolfin decides to continue north. So that's not the moment where they set out across the Helcaraxa, just the one where they decide not to go home, right? Remember we talked about that last time. So today's episode 9 then, would be the battle in the south first, the battle between Bulldog and his orcs and the Green Elves primarily, and we'd get the death of Denethor on Amon Areb, and we would then add the Helcaraxa crossing. So the setting out on the Helcaraxa would then be moved to this episode. And one thing that I would say in general that I really like about this sort of revised outline is that it breaks up the Helcaraxa more. We were going to have more of a feature on the Helcaraxa in episode 10, but I think spending a huge, like the majority of an episode on the Helcaraxa would be kind of rough. So I actually really like the idea of breaking up the Helcaraxa over basically 3 different episodes, is the current plan. And I think that will enable us to show the fact that a lot of time passes, right? That it takes a long time and is very difficult without having to. I think it will make that challenge a lot easier. We keep coming back to them. Yep, still crossing the Helcaraxa, and we can show them in sort of different stages of extremity, you know, as they're struggling across the Helcaraxa. So I think that will work really, really well. And yeah, Phil, it does emphasize how long it took and what a big deal it is, right? So I think that's great. That would then in episode 10 leave us with the battle in the north, with Feanorians and the orcs at Mithrim and the mortal wounding of Feanor. And of course then we'd return to the crossing of the Helcaraxa there as well, doing the second part of that, episode 11. The rest of this is then more or less as planned. We go back to Valinor for the making of the Sun and Moon in episode 11. Feanor dies, right? And we get the attack of the spiders on Menegroth. So remember how we were talking about how Shelob and the other children of Ungoliant being roused and recruited by Sauron were going to have been infiltrating the forest, and they're going to make their assault on Menegroth, so things will look bad for Menegroth at the end of episode 11. And then episode 12 we have the institution of the Girdle of Melian, you know, with that the repulsion of the spiders. The last stage of the crossing of the Helcaraxa, the capture of Maedhros at the fake parley, I think at the end of the episode, then the rising of the moon, leading us to in episode 13 Fingolfin's arrival in Middle Earth, the chaining of Maedhros to Thangorodrim, the setup for what looks like it could be a horrible kinslaying part 2 around the Lake of Mithrim, and the rising of the sun at the very end of the season. So that's the new plan for the outline for the rest of the season. Any thoughts from you two on this? Like I said, I'm generally liking this. Any thoughts you guys have?
No, I think this works great. Okay.
Yeah, I think Helcaraxa plus 2 battles in one episode's been much.
Yeah, exactly. It really kind of is.
Yeah.
And I like also that it enables us to maintain the momentum with Fingolfin, right? Having just spent some time with Fingolfin and the decision that he's confronted with, to follow that up immediately in the next episode with the next level of decision, right? Are you going to cross the Helcaraxa? I think is wise, rather than essentially not coming back to Fingolfin until episode 10 and just kind of leaving it there. So I think that's good. I think that'll work. My one kind of reservation, it's not really a reservation, and I don't think it's avoidable. This has always been a problem with season 3, really, is that the ending is we don't have a really climactic ending, right? I mean, we've been able to do pretty well so far. Seasons 1, 2, and frankly 4 are all going to have nice and climactic endings, right? We end with the war to the war to begin all wars in the end of season 1 and the chaining of Melkor. We end with the darkening of Valinor in season 2. We're going to be able to end with the Dagor Bragollach probably in season 4. Season 3, by comparison, just kind of peters out, right? I mean,
this is good. I think with cinematography, we can make that Maedhros hanging on a cliff there pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And hopeless. It's going to be, and I think maybe there could be a voiceover, or there could be some kind of dialogue just before, or something that really kind of makes we leave on a note of hopelessness, that's not bad.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying it's awful. I'm not saying that we can't make episode 13 work. I mean, it's just... Okay, I was just about to say it's a little bit more, sort of less...
This is a real cliffhanger.
This is a real cliffhanger ending. I was trying to avoid using the word cliffhanger. That was exactly what I was struggling with. Yeah.
So I went there. See how we are?
Yeah.
That's why we keep you around, Trent.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, the others have... the other seasons have a real ending, right? I mean, and obviously there's we end the first season with the awakening of the elves. We end the second season with the return of Melkor to Middle Earth and the incipient rebellion of Feanor. So there are always lots of opportunities for we're sort of showing how we're pushing forward and everything, but there's like a definite resolution, right? We have the whole like Melkor and the Valar story, which ends with the war at the end. We have the whole development of the unrest of the Noldor and the sort of the undermining of things by Melkor, which ends climactically with the darkening of Valinor and the revelation of all. And we're not having that kind of moment. That's the thing that I kind of am missing. Again, this it's not really a criticism. I'm not suggesting we change it or do it differently. It's just, it's one of the things that I'm kind of, I'm feeling the lack of, is that kind of closure as well as, pushing forward. So anyway, that's just one small comment about the outline, which again, I don't think it's avoidable.
We have variety in the way we end things.
It's true. Yeah, it's so that nobody's going to be like, so time for the big battle in the last episode, right?
Right.
Yeah, true enough.
Oh gosh, they did that one differently. Oh,
right.
These guys actually have some substance.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's like lots. Really, what we're going to be doing is ending with symbolic moments, right? We will have like this symbolic picture of Maedhros, being chained to Thangaroger, and we're going to have the symbolic picture of, as Nick was just suggesting, Fingolfin reforging Ringil, right? His sword. We're going to have the symbolic, the most important symbolic moment of the rising of the sun, right? So, all of that is really important, and it carries a lot of weight, both in terms of practical plot and in terms of symbolism. But none of it is really climactic action. But that's fine. It doesn't have to be climactic action. We don't have to be in a rut. It'll be okay.
That's right. This isn't Marvel Comics, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. Not to cast stones or anything, but yeah.
This is heavy stuff here.
Exactly. Climactic symbolism is okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay, cool. And Marie, I agree. After an entire season, really one entire season, because we had the trees at least last time. After an entire season by starlight, the rising of the sun will be dramatic and impressive. I agree. Yeah, cool. All right. So let us move forward then. So let's talk about the battle, which is of course the biggest piece of this episode. Now, of course, we're talking about Bulldog and his orcs who are coming down on the eastern side of the southern front down there. We're going to start off by reviewing here the text. This is what we're told in the text of this battle. This is the passages we're working with. But the orcs came down from camps in the east between Kelon and Gelion. They plundered far and wide. Thingol called upon Denethor, and the elves came in force from Rhegion, beyond Aros, and from Assyriand, and fought the first battle in the wars of Beleriand. And the eastern host of the orcs was taken between the armies of the Eldar, north of the Andram, and midway between Aros and Gelion. And there they were utterly defeated. And those that fled north from the great slaughter were waylaid by the axes of the Naugrim that issued from Mount Dolmed. Few indeed returned to Angband. But Denethor was cut off and surrounded upon the hill of Amon Ereb. There he fell, and all his nearest kin about him, before the host of Thingol could come to his aid. Okay, so the main thing, sort of the big picture thing, right, is that this battle is a victory, but it's a costly victory, right? So it's not that the elves lose in the south exactly. The orc army is destroyed. So if we think about this in terms of Sauron's offensive as we've constructed it down here in the south, remember there are basically three separate prongs to Sauron's attack here, right? First was the army of werewolves that was racing out and attacking the Falas, right? The cities of the Falas, and they were completely successful. Well, okay, no, they were incompletely successful. They were successful in that they took the cities, right, and drove the Falathrim out. They were unsuccessful in that they didn't slaughter them, right, because the Falathrim escape on their ships. So it's kind of a qualified success for Sauron, but certainly from a military perspective, driving them out, it was very substantially successful. Then you have Bulldog and the orcs coming down on the eastern side. Instead of me just gesturing vaguely, let me return to the map, the big map here. Actually, no, wait, let me move forward to the small map, because we have a small map derived from Karen von Stead's Atlas of Middle-earth here. So this is Doriath, the Forest of Doriath down here. So the orcs are coming down this way, right? The werewolves were sent out this way. And then we also have the third prong of Sauron's plan, which is the invasion, the infiltration and invasion of Doriath itself, which is the part that's happening in secret. So we have the two open armies that are coming down. And meanwhile, we had, remember, Tevildo and his cats scouting out Doriath, and then Shelob and the spiders slowly beginning to invade. At least that's sort of the plan, right? His ace in the hole is the spider invasion that he's going to, with which he hopes to destroy Thingol and Melion's base. So, yeah, Mariel asks, what does it mean, do I think, that the orcs plundered? The elves don't yet have hoards of gold or traditional goods of spoil. I don't know exactly what they're plundering. And not plundering in the traditional sense. I don't know. I'm not even sure exactly what that's for. I mean, thinking about the in the text here, there's slaughter going on, right? But they plundered far and wide. I can imagine, food. You know, Mike and Tony are suggesting food. Yes. Certainly they would have destroyed things. Hakan, I certainly agree that we're imagining them setting fire to stuff, right? But certainly, it's not plunder in the sort of monetary sense, right? I can't imagine that there would have been much of anything for them to take either. So that's certainly true, Marielle. Marielle's wondering if maybe they took other elves. Are they still sort of recruiting additional orc fodder? I wouldn't think so, and I certainly wouldn't think that that's what the text is referring to when it talks about plunder. Plunder is an interesting kind of word to use, actually. More like destruction for its own sake. Exactly. That sounds much more like the kind of thing, I think. Marie says she thinks we gave the orcs a kill them all order, so no slave capture this time around. Yeah, we're gonna get the capture of slaves is going to be one of the subplots of season 4, right? I think in season 4 is where we're going to start to build the whole elves as prisoners in Angband dynamic, right? Which is something that will grow into an even bigger part of the story in future seasons, of course, especially as we get around Gondolin and that kind of thing.
Season 3 is just wiping them out.
See, that Sauron is just, he is kicking butt but not taking names. Sorry, go ahead.
What's the inciting event for transitioning from killing them to taking them as slaves?
I would say the siege. Basically once, right now, Morgoth, upon his return, he is just trying to establish dominion. He's trying to wipe out his enemies, right? Uh-huh. But after the sun rises, it's going to get harder, right? So one of the things that the rising of the sun and moon is going to signal, and one of the things that we need to make sure that we're conveying in those last couple episodes. The whole point of this sort of final big massive intervention by the Valar in Middle Earth for a long time is that it totally changes the game, right? Morgoth thinks that this is like his kingdom now, right? Middle Earth is totally his. He's thinking maybe the Valar are going to come and attack him. But if they don't, this place is just his playground. When the sun and moon rise, it sort of levels things a lot more and enables the elves to establish their siege of Angband. Once that's established, then it's clear that I think it's going to be clearer to Morgoth at that point that forget the Valar invading, just dealing with the elves in Middle Earth is going to be much more of a long-term project than he had in mind. And so that's where I think he's going to stop just killing everybody and start because this one of the points of having the slaves, right, is not just to get the labor out of them, but the kind of manipulation that he can do, the kind of undermining of his enemies, and spreading of dark rumors and suspicions and treacheries among them and stuff. And you don't bother with that kind of tactic if you think you're just going to wipe them out pretty quickly, right?
So this is sort of consistent with something that's said about Sauron later, right? That
yes, that
given a choice, he prefers force, but he'll fall back to subterfuge and deceit if required.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And as Nick also points out, massive orc casualties have a lot to do with it too, right? I mean, since so many of the orcs are wiped out in these first battles, and remember, there's that passage, especially after the battle in the north. That's where it in this early after these early stages, it becomes clear to Morgoth that orcs alone are really no match for the elves, and he's got to regroup and come up with new ideas. And so that also, it becomes a question of, he's fueling his R&D projects, right? And he's, so yeah, that's where the change of tactics, I would say, really comes in. And yeah, as Tony points out, he would also want to capture people during the Cold War stage for intelligence purposes as well.
Right. That makes sense. The slave capturing often tends to occur not during clashes of large armies, but it tends to be
right.
Small bands capturing capturing people out in the middle of the wood, small parties out in the middle of the woods or whatever,
right.
Like what we see with Baron.
Right. Exactly.
I don't wonder if is this going to be something that maybe Sauron suggests, Morgoth?
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. I mean, that's especially the way that we've been setting this up so far. I mean, on the one hand, we want to be careful because we don't want to... One of the risks of the dynamics that we've established between Morgoth and Sauron so far in this season is that Morgoth has come back and he's ticked off, right? He's more out of control. So Sauron is I'm being cunning and manipulative, and Sauron and Morgoth is just smash them, right? And so we want to be careful not to extend that too far and make it look like Sauron is really much more cunning and subtle than Morgoth, and Morgoth is just a sort of a big thug. That of course is not true. Morgoth is Sauron's example in subtlety and cunning. Now obviously we already established that to a large extent back in season 2 in Valinor, and with his undermining of the Noldor, but we don't want to lose that entirely. But anyway, yes, I certainly think that kind of thing. My suspicion is that as we move into season 4 and sort of dealing with the siege and working on R&D projects and stuff, Sauron is going to rise more and more, and Gothmog is going to fall. I mean, the force of mere thuggery is going to become less important, I think, in Morgoth's world. And so I think that I would suspect that we would have Sauron taking a bigger and bigger role in the planning, and have him really become more clearly Morgoth's chief lieutenant sort of during that whole segment. But
I don't want to take us too far off the main topic for this episode. But
go ahead.
Yeah, right, of course. Why not? But I kind of wonder, will this kind of create sort of imply a dynamic wherein Sauron kind of prefers the Cold War because it brings him to greater prominence. He's got more to do.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, certainly when it just comes to leading troops into battle, that's Gothmog's specialty, right? I mean, he's good at the smashing things. That's you know, the way that we were shaping his character as you know, chief thug and heavy of Morgoth. So yeah, I mean, I would think that would be Sauron's movement would always be towards that, which means, you know, again, the two other places where Gothmog is going to shine are going to be the big battles, right? The Battle of Sudden Flame. The you know, he's going to be the one we remember who kills and defeats Fingon in the Near Ninth Arnoediad, right? Whereas I can see, for instance, Sauron being involved in the breeding and training of Glaurung, for instance, right? I would see him really a big part of that.
Also, you know, I mean, Sauron is going to be very cunning and deceitful, you know, elves in Eregion and the Númenóreans. So, I mean, this could be sort of the beginning. You know, we see the beginning of that here.
Yeah.
His honing that kind of skill, if you will.
Exactly. And well, Tony, you're right. When Gothmog falls in Gondolin, Sauron would certainly be kind of glad to hear about that. Of course, the problem is Sauron falls sooner, right? You know, Sauron isn't going to even make it to the Near Ninth Arnoediad, though that's going to be a really interesting challenge, right? I don't want to lose Sauron as a character, and of course, we know he doesn't die, nor does he completely leave Beleriand. He just doesn't take part. Again, he's not mentioned again in the story. You know, we don't hear of anything that he does. I don't necessarily think that means he completely vanishes, right? And lives the whole rest of the First Age in quiet retirement. But it's going to be a really fun challenge to figure out what do we do with Sauron after Beren and Luthien, right? Anyway, so yeah, because there'll be some really interesting factors to balance. But there we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So let's try to keep it to season 3 here. All right. So again, this is sort of the overview of the military plan here in the south, Sauron's sneaky plan to take over. And the thing that I really like about this is that we can show, even when Sauron in the southern front is losing, he's kind of winning. Like, it's kind of working out, right? Like, Bulldog is going to be defeated down here, because Thingol is going to march out and the Green Elves are going to come in, and what we have this like pincer movement, just like the Elves are going to try unsuccessfully in the Near Ninth Arnoediad. But of course, while that's happening, we also have Sauron infiltrating Doriath, so that even having drawn off the Elven host to fight Bulldog becomes a kind of sneaky victory, right? As it leaves Doriath open, and they don't realize, because they don't know of any other army marching, right? Because we only have sneaky spiders and sneaky cats, that this other and more insidious force is invading Doriath and closing in on Menegroth. So again, I really like how this positions Sauron and his planning. So. Anyway, so cool. So again, this is just sort of the overview. So now a few of the responses to some of my questions from last time, thinking about details of this battle and how we want to do this fight scene. So one of my questions for last time was about the Ents, because we know the Ents are the close friends of the Green Elves. We know that the Green Elves need to be, if not defeated, they need to take very serious losses. And so we're confronted with the question, how do we have the Ents, supporting them and with them and being their unflagging friends, and have Treebeard survive and yet have, Denethor die? As you'd think it would be a priority, right? I mean, Treebeard wouldn't let that happen if he possibly could. So do we show, how do we manage that? Suggestion from the discussion board was that the Ents have gone wandering, right? You know, they're exploring Beleriand. They're, you know, Treebeard is going around and he's waking up trees, and he's talking to the different trees, and he's seeing all the different places that he's still singing about in the Two Towers, right? In the Willow Meads of Tessaranon and all that stuff, right? From that song. And that basically they're just kind of caught out. They don't realize how quickly things are moving, right? And they don't make it back in time, or only come in kind of at the last minute after the horrible situation has arisen. That seems to me better than having them present, but sort of helpless or failing, you know, in some ways. So. Yeah.
Certainly would be easier to deal with if they're not there.
Yeah, it really would. I mean, part of me feels like it's a
seem
slight.
kind of weird if they're just like they just missed it. They're like, oh, sorry, we weren't there.
Well, yeah, I mean that could be a little bit weird. I mean, if we have them come in, you know, sort of belatedly, catastrophically, right? They come in to help, but it's like the Ents are coming, but they're too late, right? Always too late to save Denethor. Yeah. Remember, it's a victory, right? But
actually, that's a good. I think that would work pretty well. I just think I think it would look kind of silly if they're there and then they leave, and then we have the battle and there's mass slaughter, and then the Ents show up and say, "Oh, sorry guys," but I think like if we kind of establish the precedent that we just very rarely do we see the Ents staying in one place, and that they're prone to wandering, so it doesn't seem strange that they've left. And then if we have them like you catastrophically show up at the end. God, that's hard as an adverb.
Yes, it is.
If we have them show up at the end and rescue maybe too late to save Denethor, but turn the tide of the battle, I think that would work. That would be effective.
Yeah, I do like that, and we can, you know, because we can have conversation. You know, the Green Elves can be looking for the Ents to return and expecting them any minute, and then they do come. But you're right, we do need to be careful to avoid coming anywhere near the kind of dopey and clueless Ents like Jackson's Ents. I mean, that's still it still may be my number one objection. The thing I hate most about Jackson's Lord of the Ring films is like the dopey cluelessness of Treebeard. Even more than Faramir's, because Faramir's the weakness of Faramir's character in Jackson's adaptation at least has a redeeming feature. You know, in that it plays up the daddy issues thing, which is in fact a factor in the book. It just plays it up more by making him even more, you know, sort of mewling and pathetic, which again is a loss, you know, a serious loss. But again, at least it accomplishes something.
Yeah, and I guess it's consistent with sort of the story he's trying to tell about men and the role that they're playing in the war. So that's fair enough. Yeah, the Ents are just.
Yeah, it's just like, let's just undermine the Ents for absolutely no reason. Like there's no moment I hate more than Merry and Pippin having to manipulate Treebeard into accidentally discovering that a huge swath of his forest has been destroyed without his knowledge. Drives me bananas every time it happens. Anyway, yeah. So I think we can have them arriving late, and so still have them be a positive force, and they can have a sort of, their arrival shouldn't be quite as dramatic as like Bjorn's arrival at the Battle of Five Armies. I mean, I don't think we have the Elves about to lose until the Ents come in, but the Ents, that should be decisive. Like things are turning in the favor of the orcs, or maybe even what we play up is grief, right? You know, maybe the orcs have surrounded the Green Elves on Amon Areb and they've killed Denethor, and then Treebeard so Treebeard and the Ents show up as like the avenging spirits, right? And they drive the orcs off of Amon Areb, and we have a touching scene of Treebeard, lifting Denethor's broken body in his arms, and mourning an Entish lament over his friend. And so we have the Ents basically kind of holding up thinking of that pincher movement, right? Thingol's holding up his end, but the Green Elves are having difficulties, right? They're wavering. And then when Treebeard comes, then the rest of the Green Elves can kind of rally, and that's when the battle as a whole will already have been kind of going in their way, and yeah, that would be sort of the decisive moment. Yeah. So both Marie and Nick are resistant to this. Neither of you like this idea. You don't want the. See, no, Nick, you're right. The book doesn't mention the Ents, but again, this is one of those things that is a logical extension of the things that the book does say. We know that the Green Elves are friends. We have made an even bigger deal of the friendship of the Green Elves and the Ents. We know that the Ents are hanging out in Beleriand in general and Osiriand in particular. It's going to be weird not to have the Ents involved. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can we not was in reference to Jackson's Ents. Yeah, absolutely, Marie. We can absolutely do nothing like Jackson did with the Ents. Yeah. And Hakan, you're right. It's not like they changed the outcome of the battle. I don't want to, I say that their arriving can be kind of catastrophic. I don't mean that it should be like the Eagles are coming, right? It definitely should not be the thing that, suddenly and unexpectedly turns a certain defeat into unexpected victory. That shouldn't be the kind of dynamic there. I don't think. Yeah. Nick, but I disagree with you that the battle works better without them. I don't think that's true at all. And the reason to use them here is there are a couple of things. What we would gain by using the Ents here. Number one, we would gain further development of Treebeard's character, right? And giving more history and background to the story of Treebeard, which is a long, slow story, which we're going to come back to at many points. There will be many other points where we will be bringing Treebeard into the story because we will want to be asking the question, what was Treebeard up to at this time? What would the Ents think about this, whatever this thing is that is happening, right near where we know for them to be and with things and people that they care about? So we want to, I think that just making the Ents and Treebeard in particular sort of bigger and better characters is a good end in itself that will pay dividends for many years to come. Secondly, the other thing that we get here is the sort of the salvaging of as Tony is saying, the sort of the eucatastrophe isn't that the elves win, like they don't make the elves win, it's that they enable the elves to survive. I really like the idea of the Ents coming in and being instrumental in saving all of the Green Elves that do survive, once again cementing their friendship and showing what happens. As Milthaliel says, she says she likes it because she feels the Ents' role is often to mourn what happens when battles rage. I like the idea that their primary job is not going to be as warriors. I mean, they are going to come in and stomp on a bunch of orcs there at the end to help to preserve the last of the Green Elves, but they're not going to be the ones who primarily carry the battle, right? The thing that we're going to primarily see is their to preserve, to remember, and even to lament. I think that those are all three things that are super important to, like, the role of Ents in Middle-earth, right? And what we will see them doing. So that just developing that, I think, is really worthwhile. Good. Good. Okay, so Mike is Mike Huxt. Okay, right. Mike was referring up to the second point on this page. So the proposal was for Mablung to join the Green Elves, and that we see how Denethor decides to go to war. Mablung was going to be the messenger of Thingol to the Green Elves to rally them and call them to battle. And one of the challenges that people on the discussion board were pointing to is, like, how do we need Mablung to survive, right? So how does Mablung survive and let everybody else die without looking like a git, right? I mean, how does he not seem to be a cowardly loser that he manages to survive and everybody else dies? And as Mike Hockstead is pointing out, the intervention of the Ents helps with this, right? If we have Mablung and Denethor and several others of the Green Elves and only Denethor dies, but but a few of them. So, so Mablung can be one of the ones who is sort of rescued by the Ents there. That would make sense. Nick, let me clarify the role that I see with Aemon Arab. Nick is wanting me to clarify this sort of, on the one hand, the offensive pincer movement, but also the role of Aemon Arab as a defensive position. The thing that here, from a tactical standpoint, here's how I see that operating. Again, the point is the orcs are coming down and the elves are attacking them from both sides, right? The orcs are large enough hosts. They're going to be fighting them off on both sides. They succeed much better, obviously, with the green elves. So as the orcs beat back the attack of the green elves are forced to retreat to Aemon Arab against the tide of the orcs that are coming in their direction. So the fact that Aemon Arab becomes a defensive location in the battle is because they're losing, right? So they're driven back to Aemon Arab, and Aemon Arab is then taken by the orcs, and Denethor is killed. But that then tactically becomes a big deal because the orcs are going to lose, right? So if the orcs have taken Aemon Arab, the defensive position, and then they lose, why are they not building a, why don't they fort up on Aemon Arab, right? So I think that having Treebeard and the Ents come and drive the orcs off of Aemon Arab is what can sort of precipitate the general orc retreat from the Eastern Front. They're already losing. Thingol has defeated them, right? So we have the orcs, the emphasis of the battle can be on Aemon Arab, basically. That can be where most of the screen time happens, right? When Treebeard comes in, and when Treebeard and the Ents come and drive the orcs off the hill, they start, and then at that point we show Thingol showing up from the distance, right? We know that he has won his battle, and he comes and he attacks the orcs from behind. And at that point, with Treebeard and the Ents having taken the hilltop and starting to drive the orcs down, and then Thingol and the other army coming up from the other side, that's when the orcs scatter and retreat. So I think that could work well enough and would make sense and would enable us, as I say, to have the sets basically really primarily be Aemon Arab. We don't even have to necessarily get into what's going on with Thingol. Like, we don't even have to necessarily show that. We can just sort of know that they're in battle, right? Talk about the fact that they have met with the orcs, and a lot of the suspense of the episode, I think, could really be on the fact that, so the most of the episode takes place with the Green Elves, follows the Green Elves, and the battle with the Green Elves is not going well, right? So through most of the episode, it's going to look like this is a defeat, right? This is a defeat. We now bring you to the defeat already in progress, right? That's what this episode is going to look like as the Green Elves are driven back and back and back, and then only at the end is it revealed, because they know they're meeting with these orcs on one front and Thingol is meeting with them on the other front. That we've established that that's the plan. But again, on this front, it's going terribly, and so they're all wondering and worrying. Like, is Thingol having as hard a time of it as we are? Like, has Thingol also been driven back? Are the Sindar being destroyed right now, just as it looks like we might be about to? Is this the end of Beleriand as we have barely known it? And then at the end, not only does Treebeard come in and help them to take back Aemon Arab and drive the orcs out, but that we see that actually Thingol was successful all along, right? So the battle has been won. So we should be able to create that kind of eucatastrophic effect without actually having a reversal, right? Without actually having a complete, like, we are near defeat, but actually it turns out to have been a victory. We can have that effect, but it's only in perception, in a sense, right? Because Thingol, off screen, Thingol had been winning the whole time. Do you see what I mean by that? So, I mean, I think that now who was it? Tony is asking a really good question. No, it wasn't Tony. Sorry. Tony always asks really good questions, but that's not the one I'm looking for. Oh, no, it was Tony. Just a different Tony comment. Okay. Tony was saying, why would it be Mablung sent and not Beleg? That's a great question. My answer to that would be, I mean, I kind of like the idea of having it be Beleg as well. Or, sorry, of it being Mablung as well, that's sent down to the Green Elves, because I suspect that Thingol would know. Mablung is more like the soldier, right? He's more of the general, whereas Beleg is the hunter and march warden, right? So he's the one who specializes in woodcraftiness and in patrolling and things like that, right? So, you know, when he's up on the northern marches later on with Turin and stuff, that's the main kind of. That's the thing that he specializes in, whereas like leading, you know, troops into battle is not Beleg's thing so much. That's more Mablung's thing. And Thingol would know that the Green Elves aren't great at that, right? So he's asking them to come into battle, but he knows that they're not necessarily battle ready. So the idea that he would send his commander to lead them into battle is makes a lot of sense. I think that really works. And I don't think it necessarily. I mean, the fact that the Green Elves are losing, I don't think necessarily need make us think less of of Mablung personally. Like that he's. I don't think that he's necessarily an inept battle commander. This was Nick's concern. I mean, I see that concern, but I don't think it has to go that way. Because I mean, like. It's not his fault that the Green Elves are ill-armed. Like they don't have armor. They don't have the right kind of armor and weapons. I mean, we can show him kind of doing the best that he can with what he has, but in the end, they're just overwhelmed by superior armory and superior numbers, basically. So we can show him, you know, rallying Denethor and the Green Elves to a heroic stand. But a heroic stand that ultimately fails. Now. No, I'm confused about this. So the script team is informing me that they've put Beleg on the other side of the continent anyway. Why is Beleg with Círdan? Oh, wait. We sent him to Círdan to warn him? So he was the one who went to Círdan to invite Círdan to come and come to Menegroth, and then Círdan says, no, thank you? Is that what I'm remembering?
Swap him out.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out why Beleg is. I don't remember why Beleg is in the Havens. Of course, I barely ever remember anything. But like I said, to me, I don't think we need many excuses. I think that Mablung is the sensible person. Because essentially, thinking about it from another direction, right? This is also sort of Thingol saying, you guys need help, right? I don't trust you guys in battle. I mean, I trust you personally, but I don't trust your efficacy in battle, so I'm going to send my battle commander so that the Sindar are commanding both fronts, essentially, right? I think it makes all kinds of sense for him to send Mablung for those reasons. Okay. Mablung, or Beleg, now back to Beleg. I'm okay. If you guys want to send Beleg over to the Havens to have him be... but then, of course, he's got to end up being on the ships with Círdan. I'm a little worried about Beleg being away for so long. Aren't we going to want him? Mightn't he be handy when it comes to spider combat?
It is a little... it seems like a missed opportunity not to have him in the thick of things.
Yeah.
Can we just do a Peter Jackson and he traverses the whole continent?
No.
Well, especially because I think we want to engender how you like that? Engender.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. Fancy. A relationship with the audience. You know, I mean, we want to know Beleg as a friend by the time we see him again in the crucial story. Exactly.
And so now, by sending him over to Círdan, we can have him involved in the Círdan story. And I mean, we could get to know him either way. It just depends on how we want to get to him. Remember, there's another character whom we would want to get to know better and whom we have the opportunity to feature here too. And that's obviously, as Maria's suggesting, Celeborn, right? So
I was just having the same thought, actually. Yes.
Yeah. We've got 4 guys, right? 4 of the big Doriath dudes. right, that we need apart from Thingol and Melian and Luthien. We've got Mablung, Beleg, Celeborn, and Dairon the Minstrel. So presumably Dairon the Minstrel doesn't play any big role in the military engagements here, right? So Dairon is
nice
obviously back home.
Being an elfly elf,
Well,
I mean, to show that he actually like got some substance to him.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, where do we want to have Celeborn? So I'm kind of thinking like it's sort of, to me it seems, between Celeborn and Beleg, right? Which one do we send to be with Círdan, and which one do we keep with Thingol? So yeah. So Marie, we have Dairon not involved in the fighting, though he'd be present, wouldn't he? It would be kind of fun to have at least a little, like, how would Dairon participate? I mean, he could just be fighting, but I mean, I wouldn't want to make Dairon just like a wimp, like the wimp who stays home and, plays music for Luthien while everybody else goes to war.
He could be making up songs about the battle on the sidelines.
Because, like, the music of Dairon has to be significant, right? I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it has to be a huge battle weapon directly, but it has to be really important. If Dairon plays no role of any kind in the battle, I at least want Dairon to be involved in the, like, saving of Menegroth, like, around the time of the Girdle of Melian. Right. Like, we need to show that he and Luthien together, like when he and Luthien are making music, like and doing their singing and dancing thing together, it's a big deal, right? So, but anyway, we can come back to that later on. So Nick, I agree. We keep him home for the spiders. Hakan wants to know why Dairon can't be a wimp. I'm not saying he can't be a wimp, and I'm totally fine with having Dairon be on the wussy side, but we have to be careful not to fall into a stereotype of, like, I am not a warrior, I am like a musician and singer instead, as if those two things are totally different things in Tolkien's world, right? That's the thing I want to make sure we resist.
Some kind of backbone or value to make him be. I mean, Luthien and he are good friends,
right?
Not,
right.
Make him worthy of Luthien.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in Thingol's eyes.
Exactly. Yeah, we making him worthy of Luthien. I wasn't thinking that explicitly, but I think that was one of the anxieties in the back of my mind, because Dairon is not. I mean, in the end, he's gonna, sort of, wimp out. I mean, he's gonna be squirrely and do the wrong thing. So it's okay if we don't make his character super, super noble, but that's exactly why I don't want to make him ridiculous. Why I wouldn't want to make him just a wimp.
Well, it isn't. I mean, he's kind of Thingol's first choice, isn't he, for his daughter?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's right. He should be. Including to the viewers, right. Everybody's like the default. Like, everyone assumes that Dairon and Luthien are going to get together, right?
I mean, talked about that before, didn't
exactly.
We? Yeah.
The two of them should be like obviously made for each other, right? So that, like, Baron coming in is a surprise to everyone, Luthien not least. So yeah, exactly. But anyway, but as I say, I'm fine. We can save. We need. So I would like some Dairon heroics at some point. In this season.
Just to ask the devil's advocate question, why not make him heroic?
Right. Exactly. I think that we should show that. I mean, we're talking about the person whose music is, like, better even than Maglor's, right? The guy who may be the greatest musician of the First Age. Like, that's a huge deal. The greatest musician who ever lived.
Heroic, and having him miss out on Luthien makes it even that much more sort of poignant,
yes,
I suppose.
exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'd say this is a good opportunity to take a character who's kind of a one-dimensional character, whose sole purpose in the story is just to be a foil, and then making him into, like, I think it'd be cool if if his story is sort of a fall, right?
Yeah, exactly. To show having his betrayal of Luthien be a fall, I think would be a really good effect too. So, So again, I'm fine with having Yeah. So this idea I love. I would like to build up Dairon, but yeah, let's have him do anti-spider heroics. In fact, somebody was joking. Who was it? Hakan was joking about Dairon singing Attercop and Tom Noddy songs. Hakan, I love that. Right? The idea that we can create a parallel, right? So that Dairon singing songs against the spiders in Doriath, that we could have Bilbo's spider taunting songs in Mirkwood down the road be like a visual parallel to Dairon singing songs against the spiders is the coolest thing ever. Oh my goodness, that is awesome.
Does Bilbo recite his titles while he's fighting the spiders? Does he do that with the spiders?
No.
I can't remember.
No, not exactly. No,
no.
It's where he's singing the Attercop and Crazy
Attercop and Tom Noddy.
Lazy Lob and Crazy
yeah.
Cobb. Yeah.
But you're right. I think it'd be an awesome parallel to that.
That would be so much fun. So much fun. Yeah. So to have, but of course the point of that parallel is not to reduce Dairon and make him silly, but rather to elevate Bilbo. That like while Bilbo is singing his like right. funny spider poetry, he is recapitulating one of these great heroic moments. That it's one of those.
And of course, Dairon's theme will be playing while in the soundtrack while Bilbo is doing that. So
yeah. Oh, exactly. Musically, we could connect them, right?
Right.
I love that. Oh, I love it. Okay. No, this is Hakan. That is brilliant. That is great. Okay. So we have to figure out how to work that in, but that is not today's problem. So we've got a role for Dairon. So Beleg and Celeborn. So one of them needs to be with Thingol in the army, and the other needs to be sent with Círdan and maybe coming back, but will have to have been off on the ships. And I can see arguments on both sides. On the one hand, having Celeborn be next to Thingol, at Thingol's right hand in the battle, kind of, showing Celeborn being strong and awesome is cool, right? I mean, I like that. The downside, Thingol's side of if we do the battle the way that I was just suggesting on screen, Thingol's side is going to get almost no screen time, so we won't get any Celeborn heroism on screen, right? We'll just kind of hear, like, trust us, Celeborn did awesome things off screen that you didn't see, right? Like, ever the fate of Celeborn.
We could have the Elvish girls saying, "Ooh, that Celeborn, he's so brave," but we don't actually show him doing anything.
Exactly, right. Which is exactly what we get in the Fellowship of the Ring. Like, trust me, Celeborn is awesome. You don't see any evidence of it, right. But take my word for it, Celeborn is cool. That's exactly Galadriel's whole maneuver.
Influenced by you, since I've been, listening to you for eons now about the books, that when I can't remember, it was a couple readings ago of the Lord of the Rings when I was reading Galadriel's like speeches to the company when they arrive at Lothlorien. I read it in a whole different way than I ever had before, because she's like trying to like protect the fact that she's got this wussy husband and she's kind of building him up to the Fellowship, but it's like, yeah, right. I had never read it that way before.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, a couple of you are saying, but wait a second, wasn't Beleg with Círdan? That's my whole point is I'm second guessing that, or at least I want to open that discussion again. I'm not sold on Beleg being the one that we send to Círdan. And here's the main reason for that. Nick, for instance, is sort of saying that, ferrying Beleg back could be relatively easy because, there are bunches of ships and stuff. And yeah, I see that. Because we can have, after they flee from the Falas here, we can have Celeborn send one ship with, have a conversation with Beleg and be like, you go back home. And so he sends Beleg back, one swift ship to take him back and then sail up Sirion and then get him back home. Like, that could happen, right? I'm not saying that it's a logistical problem. But first of all, I'm not sure that isn't a wasted opportunity. Mightn't it be kind of fun to have a member of Thingol's court with Círdan up here in the north, right? Witnessing from afar the burning of the ships, coming across mightn't that be kind of cool? I'm thinking we might want to keep one of the people of Thingol's court with Círdan during this whole sequence. I'm actually myself still not 100% sure where, like, what Círdan is going to be doing. I think the script team has more plans for Círdan than I have in my head currently, so I'm not really sure exactly what Círdan is going to end up doing over the rest of the season. But anyway, I think I have a vague sense that it might be cool to have one of the people of Thingol with him during that whole time. And if that's true, should it be Celeborn or should it be Beleg? And the more I think about it, I like Celeborn being with Círdan for a couple reasons. One, Círdan is the one who is interacting, like beginning to interact with the Noldor there, and of course, Galadriel's not present, right? Galadriel not present at the burning of the ships and everything, but still, like beginning to bring Celeborn into contact with the Noldor enables us maybe to do some interesting and kind of fun things with that. The other thing that I think even honestly, the thing that I struggle with even more is Beleg on a boat just seems wrong. It just seems wrong. Beleg doesn't belong on a boat. He's a woodland dude. Beleg is wasted on a boat, right? Celeborn can be all like wise and discerning and whatever on board a ship, right? And establishing him in like really close relationship with Círdan could pay cool dividends later on as well. But do you... I don't know. Does anybody else feel the same that I do about Beleg on a boat? I'm just visually picturing Beleg with his bow on a boat and with nobody to shoot at and like no woods to sneak through, and it just seems wrong.
Well, and also, if we have Celeborn like witnessing the burning of the ships, something that Galadriel's not at, I mean, it gives them, well, not that particular topic, but like when they do meet and court, which I assume they will, there's going to be kind of him having witnessed that is going to give him some kind of empathy, sympathy. I don't know. I think it would impact positively sort of the story of them getting together.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Like for instance, I could imagine.
I like that.
Yeah. On the day when the news of the kinslaying breaks, right? And Thingol is doing his whole so the Noldor have come red-handed with the blood of their kin. I marvel at you, right? As he's going to be saying to Finrod, right? I marvel at you to come to my board thus red-handed with the, so to have Celeborn basically be remembering the burning of the ships, right? To have Celeborn be a voice to support them and say, not all there's Noldor and then there's Noldor, let's not forget that they, remember the thing that, what's his name? Angrod is going to be reminding Thingol, right? That those who crossed the grinding ice are kind of in a different category from the Feanorians, right? And so Celeborn remembering the burning of the ships will have, on the one hand, a really visceral connection to the idea of the kinslaying. Like he saw the whole the husks of the ships of the Teleri, but he also is keenly aware of the suffering that the sons of Finarfin and Fingolfin suffered in the crossing of the Helcaraxa, and how they were betrayed by Feanor as well, and how yes, they're kind of guilty, and yes, they concealed the kinslaying and covered that up, but they too were betrayed by Feanor, just as the Teleri were. So, having him be a voice for that, having been witness of the ships, there's kind of something there's kind of something I think that we could sort of make that. Phil says, "There we go. Galadriel observing Celeborn being wise." Right there we go. It's his big chance to make an impression on his future wife. Right. Okay.
It also might give, kind of give Celeborn an affinity for her just to begin with.
Right.
Based on what he saw.
Yeah,
I
some
don't know,
compassion
but
for her or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Nick is reminding me that, or informing me, I don't remember which it is, but they're functionally the same thing. That one of the points of having it be Beleg is that because Beleg would be, that the idea was, okay, Beleg was over at the Fallas with Círdan to warn him or invite him to come back, and Círdan was going to say no thanks, and then the werewolves attack, and then Beleg was going to, his priority was going to go to carry news of the fall of the Fallas back to Doriath. And so Nick is arguing that it would be kind of weird for the representative of Thingol to be like, whatever, Thingol's on a need-to-know basis. I'm going to just, hang out with you people and sail with you in exile because, that seems like the thing to do. I get that objection. And then, of course, since the role of the representative of Thingol was going to be basically returning, having this long solo journey back across Beleriand to return to Thingol with the news, that was the way that it fit Beleg, that we have Beleg the Hunter, sneaking his way through. And it's true that would provide us some opportunity of, Beleg to encounter some of Tevildo's cats, or maybe even Tevildo himself, right? And so that he not only returns to Thingol, but has gathered he can give him some kind of, he can arrive with not only news of the Fallas, but of sort of uneasy warnings that all is not well back in Doriath and that something else is stirring in the forest and stuff. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. I can see that working. Then he doesn't have to be on a boat for very long, at least, so that wouldn't be too weird. We could send them both. How about we send them as a team? Right, the two of them go together to the Fallas, and Celeborn stays with Círdan while Beleg returns home. Right? How about that? We could have it both ways. Why not have it both ways? Because, see, the problem with Celeborn staying home is that, again, he gets no screen time, right? And we lose the chance of having Celeborn be awesome at all. And, again, I'm liking this sort of his empathy with the Noldor and his different perspective on the kinslaying and things. I'm kind of liking this plot. Maria's asking, am I okay with the fact that Celeborn will then miss out on the spiders and the girdle? Yes, because that's not going to be. I mean, it's going to be Melian and Dairon and Luthien, right? Are going to be the primaries there in this with the spiders and the girdle anyway. So there's not going to be any role for Celeborn anyhow there. So yeah. And we can give him something else to do. I mean, again, whatever Círdan is going to get up to, Celeborn can help with that. Or, we can dispatch him later on, Celeborn, to be a further messenger. He can be bearing tidings of the Noldor, the arrival of he can be the one who brings the tidings of the Noldor to Doriath, at the end as well. So, yeah, again...
Maybe Celeborn can be the guy who's zooming back and forth across the continent.
Right, well... nah, I still like that. I like having it both ways. Let's have it both ways. Yeah. No, it's good.
Maybe Celeborn is the one. Maybe Celeborn starts breeding the super fast rabbits.
We don't need to zoom anybody across the continent. We're totally fine for travel time. It's not a problem. As Nick points out, we have fast ships that can take us around from the Fallas and up the Syrian. So, the journey of Beleg will take a while. I mean, he's not going to get there in time for the battle. I would think that Beleg would arrive right after the battle happens. And at this point, it's now, 3 episodes since the fall of the Fallas? It's been a while, right? So we have plenty of time for Beleg to have been journeying while this other stuff is going on. And then he arrives after the orcs are defeated, and in order to warn Thingol that all is not well in Doriath, and that there's big, scary, sneaky things sneaking around in Doriath, and that's how we can then transition back to Menegroth and Dairon and Melian and the Girdle, right? And so Marie says, so Thingol has no one of import with him in the battle. Yes. Because remember, he doesn't need any. He's just going to win, right? And he's going to win off screen. So we're not going to have any. We don't need to feature anybody with him, because he's not going to be doing anything on screen other than marching in at the end victoriously. So that's fine, actually, if his supporting cast is comparatively small. He can be expecting Beleg to return and wondering at why Beleg is taking so long, which can then set us up to Beleg's story about how he was delayed because he met giant cats and ginormous spiders. So that's fine, but yeah, so that would be fine.
Besides, what are you guys talking about? This is where we turn Luthien into an action hero.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's just it. Yeah, I can't wait to, like, those scenes of, like, Luthien with a sword in either hand, like, and, like, up, with, like, spattered with spider gore, and, yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Correct.
It's going to be awesome. It's just what everyone's been waiting for, I know. Yeah. Hakan says, what about Elmo? Didn't we cut Elmo? I am sure that we said we're not going to have any elf named Elmo. Like, that is not going to be allowed to happen anywhere in the SilmFilm project. So, yes. Good. So, yeah. Hakan, we could have Elmo and kill him off in the battle. No, just kidding. I know. No Elmo. Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's go back to the slide now that I'm done with the map here. Where were we? Down here. Okay. All right. So coming back to, we've talked about a bunch of these. Let me go through some of these other points that we have on our slide here. Thoughts and suggestions from the discussion boards. Okay, so we've got, Mablung joining the Green Elves and seeing how Denethor decides to go to war. So he arrives not only as the messenger, but like, hi, I'm here with a message for Thingol, and I am here to lead you into battle as well. So Denethor agrees to work with him, and off they go. The contrast between the leather armor of the Green Elves and the ironclad orcs, yes. It should look like, as people were suggesting earlier on, it should look like a miracle that the Green Elves should be so far outgunned by the orcs that it should look like a miracle that any of them survive. Like, it is a testimony to Mablung's skill as a battle commander that they don't just get like the floor mopped with them, that they're able to put up as much of a resistance as they do and not get completely annihilated. Yeah, Marie, it's not quite Ewoks versus Stormtroopers, but not quite proportionally, but but something along those lines, yeah. Okay, the challenges of communication between the various allies, Sindar, Dwarves, Nandor, and the Ents. Yes, we should have lots of people wondering what's happening elsewhere should be a feature, right? Mablung has come to the Green Elves, and so he tells them what the plan is, right? So they know that Thingol is going to be attacking from the other side, but they have no idea he has attacked, right? I mean, they have no idea, right? They're hoping that he has actually attacked. Trusting that he has attacked, they're hoping that he's not getting slaughtered. But of course, again, given how badly things are going on their side, they're going to be worried that he is being slaughtered somewhere far away, and they can't see it and don't know that it's happening. So the dwarves should be a complete mystery, right? Because they're hoping for help. They've sent for aid to the dwarves, and they're hoping that the dwarves will come and aid them and attack the orcs from the north. But not only do they have no communication with them to know whether that's going to be happening, but of course they're not sure if they can trust the dwarves either. So they're in all kinds of doubt and suspense about that, and they're certainly not counting on the dwarves, but kind of hoping for that. And then the Ents, like they know that the Ents will not abandon them, but they don't know for sure where the Ents are. They know that they've been wandering and are expecting them to come back, but don't know if they're gonna come back. So yeah. 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 Tony is reminding us that, we do always have, there's no textual reason that we can't have elves using, like, communicating through birds, like talking to birds and sending messages by way of birds to each other and things, as an example of, elves do in theory have, as magical beings, as Tony points out, have more resources at their disposal for things like this than, modern human armies would. I agree that that's true. I think we want to be careful with that, of course. We don't want to exploit that too much. Or it could end up getting... Yeah, Chris says, birds, yes, moths, no. Agree. No moths. No moths will be used as messengers at any point in the SilmFilm project. Yeah. Nick says, how does Mablung expect the Green Elves to survive this? Okay. I think... Again, working out the tactics in ways which we don't necessarily need to spell it. We don't need to have a schematic map on screen or something. But if I'm Mablung, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Mablung has encountered the orcs. He knows that they're steel-clad, right? He arrives among the Green Elves and says, hey, I'm here to lead you into battle. And he looks around and he sees that nobody has any real armor, and they have very little even in the way of metal weapons. And he's like, okay, right? He's going to be enough of a battle commander to realize they're going to be serious underdogs. So Mablung's plan A is not going to be, let's lead a frontal charge, into the orcs. I think that what his plan would be to engage. Okay, again, if I'm Mablung, this is what I'm thinking. Lay ambushes, draw the orcs into establish a defensive position behind the lines, right? Emon Arab, right? So he'd planned for Emon Arab all along. That would be his plan, right? What the Green Elves have is stealth and archery, right? So he would plan to sort of set ambushes and try to hit and run them, right? But his point would be, thinking big picture, his goal would be to draw the orcs towards Emon Arab, where the Green Elves could stand defensively through fortifications, right, at Mount Arab. Or at Emon Arab, same thing. So he's trying to draw the orcs to attack him so that Thingol from the other side could attack the orcs from the rear, right? Because he knows that Thingol's army is the one that has the chance to beat the orcs on the flat, right? But he'll give them the best chance that they can have if the orcs are chasing the Green Elves, right? So he'll use the orcs to engage the Green Elves and to chase them down, and then ideally besiege, hopefully futilely besiege, the Green Elves on Emon Arab while Thingol comes up from the rear. But then this is where which is kind of like a reasonably good plan, I think, right? But the problem is Thingol doesn't get there as quickly as it looks like. I mean, notice, like, we can set up the Nirnaeth Arnodiad, right? Again, we have another one of those moments which we can use as a setup for later on, because again, this kind of pincer movement, this two elf kindreds planning to take the armies of Morgoth as between hammer and tongs. We're going to do this again, right? And of course, in the Nirnaeth Arnodiad, the other side is completely delayed and never gets there. So how cool would it be in this moment to have it look like that's going to happen, right? Have it, there be continual anxiety. Have Mablung continually looking out. Does anyone see them yet? Is Thingol coming yet? He's not here yet. What does this mean? Is he not coming? Has he been defeated? Have they been are we going to all be killed before he gets here? He was counting on their arriving earlier, and they haven't arrived yet. But then they do arrive, right? And although Denethor dies, and it's tragic, and there are many losses among the Green Elves, the day is still saved, and the battle is still won, and Treebeard comes and helps and everything, and the thing, and so it ends sadly, but well, right? And then, of course, so it looks like we're setting up the same thing when we get to the Near-Ninth Arnoidiad, except that time it's just everything's gonna be horrible, right? And the disaster that it looks like might be coming here on the Eastern Front actually will come, right? In the Near-Ninth Arnoidiad. So I think that's I think that's how it should be played. Do we need to come up with a specific excuse, a specific reason why Thingol was delayed? Maybe we could, right? To have, Mablung leading the desperate defense. Something. I mean, it could just be like Bulldog winning. Can anybody think of a good reason for Thingol's delay, other than just, again, like it not going as well as they had hoped at first, which is kind of hard to explain on screen. Hakan says they should expect the dwarves. Yeah, to have the dwarves not showing up, and so have there be some misunderstanding and miscommunication, maybe, so that part of the plan originally is that the dwarves show up too, and so when the dwarves don't show up, far more of the orcs can concentrate on Thingol's army than had been part of the original plan, and so this could breed ill will between the elves and the dwarves. The elves thinking the dwarves failed us, right? And that's why so many of the green elves ended up dying. This battle would have been over had the dwarves come as we hoped that they would, and as they intimated that they probably, that they were planning to do. They should we should get some kind of messenger from the dwarves saying we're coming, right? We're going to help. And so they're counting on it, and then it doesn't happen. So then we get distrust continuing, right? Now the dwarves are going to come, but they're going to come a little bit late. They're going to come and attack the orcs as the orcs are retreating. So the dwarves are going to come through. The dwarves aren't going to betray them, right? And so the dwarves can also feel a little bit ill done by, because they'll be like, hey, what do you guys feel like why are you guys mad at us? Like, we did everything we could. We came as soon as we could. It's not our fault that we didn't get there in time, or that the orcs move faster than we expected, or whatever, exactly as Marielle was just suggesting. So Nick, so the orcs arrive, the dwarves arrive and almost annihilate the orcs, right? And so they feel like, hey, we did our part, right? This is it. Like, what a team we've made. And Thingol will acknowledge this. I mean, again, it's not like anyone is going to actually say the dwarves are traitors, but it can kind of simmer, right? There'll be some sentiment among the green elves, especially some particular anti-dwarf sentiment among the green elves, and possibly, Treebeard would be possibly thinking about this. So anyway, there's lots of ways that we can work that, but Hakan, that seems to me a really great solution, because that opens up wonderful opportunities for, again, continuing to build this kind of complex tension between the elves and the dwarves of the Blue Mountains there in this region as we move forward. I really like that. So the defense of Amun-Areb by Mablung and the Green Elves just has to end up lasting much longer than they thought they were going to have to stand, and that's why in the end they are almost completely overwhelmed and Denethor is killed. Okay, so that's great. Another suggestion from the discussion board about Bulldog's inability to adapt to new strategies, his advantage are superior numbers and better equipment. Yeah, I don't think that we see much strategy, anything in the way of innovative tactics by Bulldog and the orcs. He's just pounding with superior numbers and good equipment. Oh, on the subject of equipment, are any of the dwarves selling weapons to the orcs? I know that, like, the orc kingdoms as a whole are going to be allied with the elves, but do we have any rogue elements among the dwarves who have decided, under the counter, to try to maximize their profits by the affair and sell arms to both sides? Should we make that happen? I mention this because this explicitly happens in the 1933 and the 1937 Quentin Silmarillion. So it's that's on the table, right? Phil says, does this touch on the issue of the petty dwarves? Yeah, Nick is talking about that, right? Yeah, that could be what the petty dwarves do wrong and why they get exiled. Love that. Love it. So I'm just saying, if we're going to have that for later, we don't need to make a big deal of it now. But would we want to raise the fact? Would somebody, one of the elves, observe on the battlefield? Like, point to a dead orc and say, that doesn't that look to you like dwarf armor that orc is wearing? Right? Anybody else notice that some of these orcs are wearing dwarf equipment? Right? Again, nothing needs to come of it right away, but I'm just wondering, maybe not now, maybe we save that for later. I'm open. Just wanted to raise the issue if perhaps we wanted to think about starting to sow the seeds of that here in this, just because of the thinking of the relationship between the elves and the dwarves here. Yeah, cool. And yes, Phil, you're right that Tolkien does say that the passage I think you're thinking of, Phil, is that at the Battle of the Last Alliance, there were some of every race in the world was divided with some on each side except for the elves, right? So that logically that suggests there were evil dwarves who were fighting for Sauron in the Battle of the Last Alliance. So yeah, like having dwarves be being bad guys is legitimate, right? But anyway, yeah. So like I said, just consider script people. Keep it in mind. If it works, great. If not, we can do it later. But I love that as being the reason for the exile of the petty dwarves down the road. I think that's perfect. Okay. Tragedy of the death of Denethor at Amon Areb. Okay, so let's think about that a little bit. The death of Denethor. How does he die? What kind of death do we want Denethor to die? Do we want him to die a heroic sacrificing of himself, putting himself between enemies and somebody else, to save somebody else? Is that the kind of death we want Denethor to die? He should die a good death, Marielle, I agree. But again,
anticlimactic. He should just take a stray arrow.
that he could, right? We could have one of those moments where, like, he says, I wouldn't want to go too far in the other direction. Though this kind of thing happens all the time. What was the name of that Union general? Reynolds, John Reynolds, who was killed in like the very first skirmish before the Battle of Gettysburg, right? So that like one of the issues of the Battle of Gettysburg was that Reynolds was dead and died in the first minutes of the first encounters at Gettysburg, and so was not there for the entire battle. Just shot on his horse from a distance, like by a stray bullet. We could do something like that, but I don't think we should go quite that far. He could die a heroic death at Bulldog. Bulldog could be the one to kill him, which that would certainly make sense.
I'm kind of inclined. We're going to have so many self-sacrificial heroic deaths throughout the course of this story and series. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. That's quintessential Tolkien. But I just kind of wonder if maybe we can do something different here.
Yeah, exactly. We could make him just swarmed under. That kind of fits the description, right? David Atlee is saying we could give him the death that Éomer was kind of looking for at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, right? A last stand on a hill with his personal guards surrounding him and, just overwhelmed and all of them slaughtered by superior numbers. That works, and that fits the text description of how Denethor dies. Hakon has a novel suggestion that he could die fairly early on in the battle, and that could be one of the early turning points that causes great dismay among the Green Elves. Like, he doesn't have to be a climactic death in the sense of he dies near the end, right? His death could be not the final straw, but the turning of the tide. Everything is going swimmingly with Mablung's ambush leading to siege to draw off the orcs' plan until Denethor is killed, right? And then the Green Elves lose spirit, and then the defenses start to be overwhelmed, and the dwarves don't show up, and Thingol doesn't show up yet, and it looks like everything is going downhill, and it's just Mablung trying to rally the rest of the Green Elves who are horribly dispirited from the death of Denethor. I kind of like that. Actually.
I don't remember a lot about the Battle of Malden, but could there be some whiff of that in this battle?
I don't know that we'd want to use that here.
Okay, someday we should.
But someday we should. Yeah, no, it's definitely, the Battle of Malden is definitely worth remembering. But yeah. Mike Hochstadt, of course, points out that in having Denethor die near the beginning of the battle rather than towards the end, at the very end of the battle, we're also kind of previewing Feanor dying early too. Marielle is thinking of the same thing. We should save the Battle of Malden parallels for a Mannish battle rather than an Elvish battle. That's kind of what I had in my head too. Now you're right, Nick, that we do have to be careful that the audience doesn't know Denethor very well. So there is the risk of lowering the tragedy if he dies really early. Right, it won't necessarily have the same kind of emotional impact. I think that the way to counteract that, it seems to me, Nick, would be to prompt the viewers in their response to the death of Denethor by the response of the rest of the Green Elves, right? By showing the lamentation and despair that they get into. It is when Denethor dies that all of them start feeling that they're going to die, and that's where everything wavers. Yes, Tony's got it. Marielle. Tony says we should save and Trish. Tony says we should save Malden for Haleth. I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so I think if we show the impact on others on screen enough, I mean, no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to have time to make everybody fall in love with Denethor, right? I mean, we don't have too much time for character development for him, so we will have had him a little bit to introduce him, but I don't think we can shoot for a close emotional commitment, on the part of the viewers for Denethor before he dies. I don't think that's really possible. Man, it would really kind of tear Treebeard up, wouldn't it? To be thinking about how he arrived too late to save, Denethor was already dead and had been dead for a while. When he shows up, that's sad. That's sad. I like it. That's good. Milthaliel, that we haven't discussed that, and we probably should. So Milthaliel brings up an important point, that we need to make sure that people aren't thinking too much of Steward Denethor. I mean, we've got the name thing, right? Obviously, no one's going to be identifying him exactly. I mean, it's not going to be. We're not going to have to explain that he's a different character, but we have to be aware of the association, right? I mean, we have to be aware. We have to be very consciously managing the fact that the viewers, when they hear his name, are all going to be picturing Steward Denethor, right? And everyone's going to have this image of, Denethor on fire jumping off the prow of Minas Tirith. So we need to keep that in mind and make sure that we're kind of actively combating that. I think, Milthaliel, to me, the most important thing is, I think there are two things that we can do. David, that's the first thing I was thinking is David was just suggesting we make Denethor a wise leader, right? So the thing that we have to resist the temptation to do, I think, is to make Denethor yield to the counsels of despair at all, right? He shouldn't. But here's the kind of cool thing, in this way we can kind of have our cake and eat it too, right? On the one hand, we can differentiate Elf Denethor by having him be a bold and stalwart leader until the end, though his end comes fairly quickly. But, he doesn't waver. He doesn't, there's no question of him following in the footsteps preemptively of Steward Denethor, right? But we can also we can have our cake, but we can eat it too by having his death bring despair, right? So the question of like despair and the effect of despair. So the Green Elves on Amon Areb with the orcs closing in, yielding to despair, is a parallel to the men of Minas Tirith with the armies of Sauron closing in. Tempted to give in to the counsels of despair. So that works, right? But yet we don't actually have Denethor play that same role. So I think we can kind of do it both, and it would be awesome. So yeah, Chris, yes, Steward Denethor has to have been named after Denethor the Elf. I mean, they would have known about that. And what's more, when you look at the lines of the stewards, most of them are named after famous elves or heroes of the First Age. There are Turins, there are Turimbars, there are Ecthelians, there's Denethor, there's Boromir, who also is a hero of the First Age. I mean, all of them are named after heroes of the First Age. So I have to believe that Ecthelion the Steward deliberately named his son after Denethor the Green Elf. And Milthalia, I agree. It does make Denethor the Second, Denethor the Steward giving in to despair more ironic and sad. Yeah, exactly. See, we are all about the long game on the SilmFilm project, right? We are all about setting up awesome moments that won't happen for 15 years by the choices that we make in these current episodes. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's the plan. Chris points out that logically, therefore, Denethor the Steward's parents must have seen some qualities in Denethor the Green Elf that they wanted emulated in their son, right? They didn't want to say, hey, isn't that tragic hero who died early? Yeah, let's name our kid after him. That sounds great. There has to have been something, right? Exactly. Cool. Yeah, Nick says, I hope we can remember all these awesome moments that we set up when we get there. True that. But again, that's why we're all raising the next generation, right? That hopefully they will be studying the ancient archives of these early seasons well, so that when the time comes for them to write the later seasons, they will hold all of these things. They will treasure all these things in their memories. Okay. Final point about the first battle. That we should introduce Syros as a green elf who survives and goes to Doriath after. The question, should we do that? We have to, don't we? So just for those of you who don't remember, Syros is the elf of Doriath in Thingol's court, whom Turin hucks a drinking vessel at and breaks his mouth, and then later kills. Here's the challenge with Syros, is that we know two things about Syros. Well, I mean, I guess more if you include like that he was a trusted advisor of the king and whatever. But the two essential elements of Syros is that he is an Andor, right? So he is a green elf. It's good that that you guys remember to bring him up here. The second problem, though, is his character. Now, Mariel is asking, how much of a jerk do we make him now? That's a good question, right? We don't have to make him a jerk now. He could become a jerk later on. He could be the annoying one at the battle, right? I mean, he could be like the guy who leads people in despair. You know, he could be the voice of the despair of the Green Elves, right? He could be the one who's complaining and saying, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. That could totally be his role. If we're going to have the Green Elves in despair, we're going to kind of want somebody to do that, aren't we? Aren't we going to want one of them to speak up and say, oh my gosh, we're all going to die, we're all going to die? So we could make that be Saurons. But here's my problem. So my problem is not like that there's any challenge necessarily in establishing him as like a dubious character. The problem is, for me, and Nick also points out that it's also handy to have another named green elf. With Denethor dead, we have nobody left but like faceless green elf extras, right? So having somebody else there that we can give a name to and who can be a significant figure is useful. But see, Tony, okay, so I'm thinking this thing, so Tony is suggesting another option for Saurons. What if Saurons isn't the voice of despair? What if he is instead brave and noble in the battle, right, but embittered and traumatized by his experience? And this is one of the things that kind of leads him down a negative path, which ultimately leads to his confrontation with Turin.
I was going to ask about that. I like Dairon. I would also like to flesh out and possibly rehabilitate Saurons.
Right.
I like that idea a lot. I like the idea of doing kind of a more modernish war story about a guy who, you know, suffers through something like that and then kind of has to deal with the consequences of it.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's do that.
Here's a challenge to that, though. Or here's the problem. Well, first of all, the biggest advantage of doing that is that we would explain how he gets to be Thingol's advisor in the first place, right? I mean, if he's just a jerk from day one, if he's like the jerk and wet blanket and possibly coward, why would Thingol even take him into his council in the first place, right? So there needs to be some good reason why he is in like the inner circle of Thingol's counselors. But Dave, here's my problem. Help me to work this out with the like PTSD green elf story of Saurons. The problem is that later on in the Turin story, he's not only a jerk, he's a fop. Remember, he's going to be all about like he's all about like fancy dress and primping, right? He's going to be not just a traumatized former soldier who is resistant to Turin as up-and-coming young stud soldier, right?
Right.
He's going to be scornful and disdainful at Turin because Turin doesn't comb his hair, right? He looks down on Turin because he wears ragged clothing. He's a fop. He's an aesthete.
Can we just get rid of that?
No, because then we would lose the wonderful lines about the women of Dor Loman running like deer, clad only in their hair, and the way that plays in with like we have to have that. Like we have to have the way that those comments work with his anxiety about his mother, and because see, this is part of the problem, right? This is why I'm having a hard time reconciling it, Dave, because at the end of the day, the story with Saurons and Turin, which I think is such a useful story in that moment, Doriath has been sheltered for a long time at that point. Yes, there's battle on the frontier, but everyone's safe and comfortable. Like, the people of Doriath are like fat cats at that point, right? They haven't had hardship in ages. And here comes Turin, the refugee, right? Turin, the orphan fosterling of the men of the North, who knows that his father has been taken in battle, that his kingdom has been destroyed, his mom is left alone, his people are refugees and oppressed by the Easterlings that have come in. he knows suffering that the elves around him don't know. He, apart from just being human among elves, he is the one whose life is already touched by sorrow and hardship that the people around him, the elves around him, just don't, they haven't experienced. And Saurons is like the symbol of that, right? He's the sort of sleek, preening, shallow jerk who just totally doesn't get it, right? And who is utterly out of touch with the sorrow of I mean, the insensitivity of the remarks that Dairon makes about the women of Dor Lomin is shocking, right? Shocking.
True.
And I don't want to lose that, but that's what I can't jive. I can't make Saurons as representative of that, as like spokesperson for the sleek and comfortable people of Doriath who are growing complacent within the girdle of Melian.
You're right. We shouldn't lose that. That's a good point. I was kind of, I was imagining a story in which he's sort of the war weary, embattled guy who kind of who objects to Turin, like changing him into a guy who objects to Turin because he foresees that Turin's going to, screw up and bring about hardship and bad things. But actually, we have multiple characters like that throughout Turin's story.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Who warn everyone else like this guy's bad news. So we don't really need that. I like this. So, but okay, so maybe he doesn't have to have PTSD from the battle. What if he's sort of the aristocratic sort of, maybe he's in the battle, but he's sort of the arrogant jerk guy who's like commanding forces, but not really like in there fighting with them. He's the lead from behind type.
Right.
So he can be a good soldier and maybe he can be a good soldier and he can contribute to the battle, but there's still this element of him being removed in some way. He's not on the front lines.
Right. Right.
But I think it'd be nice to make him not just completely useless, like a useless fop.
Right.
It'd be cool if he's a arrogant fop who some of the arrogance is maybe justified because he is effective or skilled or smart, but he's just been too protected, too privileged, too set apart or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now, of course, we do have to remember that Saurons is ultimately going to die running naked through the woods in terror of Turin. Like, he's not going to die a valiant death, right? He is going to die the death of a coward. Well, but he doesn't have to be totally cowardly. Like, we can make the extent to which Turin overcomes him be a testimony to Turin's awesomeness rather than Saurons' wimpiness.
Right. Well, and also, I think there's different kinds of, like maybe he is in a one-on-one confrontation with someone like Turin. He's going to be cowardly, but maybe you put him in charge of an army or a regiment or something. Like he's not going to be down there going toe to toe with the orcs, but he knows what to do with them. Like. So maybe what we show is that he's a smart guy. Like his role in this battle could be that he successfully has his regiment contribute to the pincher action, but he's sitting up on a hill on a horse overlooking it, and he's not in the. And then maybe his whole division gets routed and slaughtered, and he runs, but not in sort of a cowardly. Embarrassing way, but sort of in an understandable, like, well, I mean, what's the point of staying and dying, sort of way.
Right.
Like we can show that he's not the run into the battle and die heroically type. He's the retreat type, but we don't have to telegraph the fact that he's going to die a bad, cowardly death. We can leave that for later. Right.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't have to make him an explicit, overt coward or, an extreme jerk right away.
Yeah.
But we can kind of open the possibility for those things, right?
Yes. We can make him not immediately sympathetic as a hero.
Right, Yes. So people are entertaining
sort of-
doubts, but it's not clear whether they're deserved or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Now-
Well, I'm kind of thinking, in saying this, I'm thinking of the distinction in Song of Ice and Fire between Robb Stark and Tywin Lannister, where, you know, Robb Stark is the guy who inspires his army by rushing in on the front lines and that kind of stuff. Tywin Lannister is not that kind. He's the lead from behind kind.
Right.
But so it's not clear, you know, if put to the test, if the guy with the sword appeared in front of him, would he fight or surrender and run? But put in charge of an army, he's still pretty terrifying.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering if there's a dynamic here like this where this guy's not a completely useless libertine. You know, like he's effective in some ways, but ultimately, with his life on the line, he'll run.
Right. Nick had an interesting suggestion. A whole bunch of interesting suggestions. I'm going to try to work some of these in. Nick has a cool suggestion, Dave, that I wonder what you think of.
Yes.
Using Syros to explain Mablung's military failure. Now, Nick, I have fewer hangups about Mablung's failure than you do. I don't think that this has to reflect badly on Mablung. I mean, he is doing wonders even to preserve any of the Green Elves. The problem, again, is that the battle hasn't gone according to plan. So, you know, the plan was never that they hold out forever against the orcs. So I'm not worried about preserving Mablung's dignity. I think we can do fine with him as we are. But Nick had the idea that so Denethor dies relatively early. Syros is the ranking green elf then left on Aemon Ereb. Mablung at some point in the battle suggests something that they could do which would turn the tide or at least allow them to escape, right? And Syros resists and overrules him because, you know, Mablung isn't the boss of them, right? He's not the leader of the Green Elves, and Syros takes the command of the Green Elves to himself and rejects Mablung's military suggestion. And this is what then, like, leads to the greater slaughter of the Green Elves. I think that that's an interesting suggestion. I mean, he has to be there. I don't like having him have a heroic role in the battle. I don't think he should be actively heroic. He needn't be actively cowardly, but I don't think I want to have him actively heroic either.
What if he arranges a strategic retreat of some kind that sort of leaves it sort of an open question about sort of, you know, maybe there's some kind of debate between him and Mablung where Mablung wants to do something aggressive,
right,
to try and turn the tide,
right, and
Syros overrules him and says, no, we're going to retreat. And there sort of leaves open this question about, like, was that the right thing or the wrong thing to do? So we can show the essential character of these guys.
Right.
But we don't have to make it definitive that, like, oh, that coward Cyrus ran away or that coward Cyrus interfered, screwed things up.
Yes.
Like, we can leave open the possibility that maybe the retreat was a good idea. Maybe that was the right thing to do.
Right. Or
I agree. Yeah. I don't think we want him to be too heroic, but I don't know. I don't want him to just be from day one. It's like, oh, there's that coward Cyrus back at it again, running away again.
Right,
you know?
right. No, I agree. And like I said, we still do have to explain how he's not, you know, why he has the position he has in Thingol's court. So, I mean, he has to have, now, just as essentially the presumptive heir of Denethor, though, of course, he's not. As Hakon points out, he's not going to be, you know, the Green Elves don't take a leader after Denethor. So he can also feel kind of slighted by that, right? Like he assumes that he's going to take Denethor's position after Denethor dies. And the rest of the Green Elves are like, no, we'd rather have nobody than you, right? So, you know, we could have him kind of souring to some extent for that reason later. I mean, that's not a during the battle issue, obviously, but Dave, when you're thinking about retreat versus aggression, I'm thinking the same thing about him being more defensive, being more cautious in battle, and Mablung wanting to be more aggressive. And as you say, having opening up the possibility that he is more fearful, that he is more cowardly, right? Though not proving it, not being an actively let's run away or do something. But but what I'm thinking is, clearly Mablung suggesting an act of aggression, like actually attacking the orcs. It's hard to see tactically how that could work. I mean, just giving the armaments and everything. But what I am imagining, what if after Denethor's death and the Green Elves are dispirited and the orcs are closing in on Aemon Ereb and there's no sign of Thingol in the distance, what if Mablung says, we need to break out? Right, if we get surrounded here and there's no sign of Thingol yet, and now Denethor's dead, and he can see that the troops are flagging, his thought is, let's attack over on this side and break out, right, and try to escape, because I'm afraid, the way that this is turning, I'm afraid this is going to become a death trap now. We were expecting both the dwarves and Thingol to be attacking, and neither of them are here. We can't fight this whole army by ourselves. This is not going to end well if we stay here on this hill as we originally planned. Let's change the plan and attack. And Syros says, no, it's not attack. Like, basically, he's sort of... The cautious thing to do is to stay behind their fortifications, right? Him being like, no, we'll be safer here. If we attack, we'll get slaughtered. So that would still enable the same kind of dynamic you're talking about, Dave. Yeah. Nick was just thinking the same thing, holding their position against, instead of launching a sortie, as Mablung would be suggesting. Yeah. Yes. Right, exactly, Marie. It's cautious because he's not obviously wrong. Right, exactly. He's not being explicitly cowardly. Yes. And then having him in the battle, I would be okay with having him in the battle be a more of a lead from behind kind of guy, right? We don't have to make a big deal of it, but we could not have him ever be on the... So, Mablung is going to be the one who's going to be showing up like totally covered in orc blood regularly, right? And Cyros's person can be kept looking excellent, right? He would be unstained by orc blood in the same way that Mablung is. Again, not that he's being a coward, not that he's running away, but he's leading from behind. Yeah. I can see this working. It may be that Mablung never really trusts him, that Mablung might have a kind of a low opinion of him, but that would be okay. It would be okay for there to be some kind of like difference of opinion or tension within the Council of Thingol. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think that works. I like that, but we certainly have to have him. I mean, I think that we need a green elf, and we need to introduce Syros anyway. So I think that this works. All right, let's keep going. We don't have much show. This is, I mean, I don't regret spending lots of time on the battle, because that's so. Here's a suggestion by Haakon of how it could work. So let's kind of read through this and see how this fits in with some of the things we've been talking about. Thingol sends a messenger to the dwarves. Yes, okay, we need the dwarves coming in. He sends Mablung and a group of Sindar warriors to aid the Green Elves. Absolutely, okay. And we want Tevildo to be spotting them leaving Menegroth. Okay, all right. The messenger to the dwarves passes through eastern Beleriand. Right, the orcs are spread out. Oh, you want them to be killed. No, I don't want the dwarves not to get the message. I want the dwarves to get the message, and I want them to send a message back. I want the elves to be expecting the dwarves to come. And I want the dwarves to think that they have fulfilled their part of the bargain. But I want the elves to be feeling like the dwarves took their sweet time, and it's kind of partially their fault that, Denethor and so many of the green elves died. And I want the dwarves thinking that those darn elves are hard to please, and they did what they said they would do, and the elves are still not satisfied. So that's kind of this is. So I don't want there to be that tragic a miscommunication from the beginning. I think the message should get through and be returned. Yeah, because I think the anticipation should be bigger there. Okay, so yes, Mablung comes and he advises Denethor, right? We're talking about that. Thingol is going to attack the Eastern Host. Yes, but again, this can happen off screen. I think the drama of this works better if we stick with Mablung, Denethor, and Syros through the entire battle sequence. And they can talk about what they know and what they expect to be happening and what they're waiting to happen and what they hope these things mean. But we don't really show them. We don't really know. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see. So, right, Denethor arrives at the battlefield, right? Okay. Now, so yeah, and here I think this should be strategic. Mablung should have the plan. I outlined the tactics that I think that Mablung and Denethor should be following. So we talked about that already. That's good. And then Thingol and the Ents arrive to Emon Arab, not together, right? So the first thing that happens is the Ents arrive and prevent Emon Arab from being completely overrun, and soon after, and so we can even have a moment where it looks like Treebeard has arrived just in time to die with the rest of them, right? That they make a change, like they prevent the orcs from overwhelming the top of the hill. But it still doesn't look like a long-term winning proposition, right? Until then, at that point. So the real catastrophe is the arrival of Thingol. And then he arrives and Bulldog escapes. Do we kill any Ents? Marielle asks. Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody
we're involving them in the battle.
Yeah, somebody suggested earlier that Bulldog should totally kill an Ent. I agree. We want to show that Bulldog is serious business. Having Bulldog take down an Ent, I think, would be good.
Bulldog should not get stepped on.
Yeah.
Did you, out of curiosity, Corey, what's your feelings about the way the Ent fighting in Two Towers in the Jackson film? What did you think about the way that was portrayed visually?
Their actual attack in Isengard is not bad. I mean, certainly.
I kind of think sometimes when the orcs are like pulling an Ent over or setting it on fire, it looks a little hokey. But I don't really know how else you would show that.
Yeah. I mean, Merry and Pippin are very emphatic in their description about how one-sided a one-on-one fight between an Ent and anybody is, right? So the idea, the image of the Ents just swatting orcs and throwing them around and stuff, that seems inescapable, right? So yeah, I think that works, but Bulldog is not a normal orc, right? He should be far larger. And showing him he doesn't have to physically, he doesn't like win an arm wrestling competition with an Ent, but showing him, he should have an enormous axe, and showing him like lopping off the limb of an orc and then taking it down, and having the Ent then being, or did I say orc? Ent I meant, and then having the Ent being swarmed over by other orcs should be a thing. Would they even use fire? I don't think they do. I don't think the orcs would have fire necessarily. Would they be burning the hillside to burn the elves out? I don't think so, because I think that Emon Arab is going to be too rocky for that, probably. I think we want, as Milthalio is pointing out, I think we want more foreshadowing about Ents and axes, right? In order for the significance of Treebeard to say a dwarf and an axe bearer, right? It would be good to show at least one Ent being taken down by axes, right? Yeah.
I mean, it seems like with Ents, you never manage to take one down with like a concerted effort, like a dedicated, like, let's attack this end. It seems like it tends to be a cumulative damage where, like, as they're mowing down a few dozen or 100 orcs, that eventually they get enough axes and burns and arrows that they get hobbled a little bit, and then somebody gets a lucky shot in.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe Bulldog pounces on a straggler who's been in the thick of things and has taken a lot of damage.
Right. He could just come up from behind and fell an ent.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be fairly gruesome. He could like split it instead of like chopping it. He could split it with his axe so that we see it actually split. Yeah. Yeah, sure. No, lots of possibilities there. Ooh, Marielle, great question. Do the Entwives come too, or just Ents? Do we have Entwives in the battle? Are they traveling together and they both show up?
Good question.
The Ents are the wandery ones. What do we do with the Entwives? When last we saw the Entwives, didn't we have them setting up agriculture? Weren't we planting groves and stuff in Osirian? Isn't that where they were?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, they're there, but I think it should be just the Ents, because it should be the wandering Ents who come in. I would think that if the battle came, like if the orc horde came into Osirian and start, we're threatening to burn the fields and groves, that the Entwives would take action. Yeah. But Maria,
seems unavoidable.
It does. Well, so Maria, I don't think that all of the Green Elves are on Amon Arab. I mean, we don't have, this is a Green Elf army that has been rallied by Denethor with Mablung, right? It's the Green Elves' response to the call of Thingol to battle and to defend their homeland. But there is not it's not like all of the Green Elves are there, right? So there are still many of the Green Elves back in Osirian, and the Entwives would be there too. So the Entwives could see themselves as like, their job is to help to defend, where the Elves and Ents live together. Yeah, Mario, we'll keep this in mind. At some point, you're right, we do need to have an Entwife in battle someday. We do need to show an Entwife kicking butt in battle at some point. Like an Entwife smackdown should occur at some point. I agree. I'm thinking maybe in the battle with the dwarves, with Baron later on is maybe a better opportunity for that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I think that'll work. All right, cool. So let's, before we totally run out of time, let's talk about the other subplot of this episode. The setting off onto the Helcaraxa. So Fingolfin's decision to head north was made last time. Now, this is okay because we already talked about this a lot last time. We set the stage for this. The question is, how do I was arguing passionately last time for differentiating between the choice not to turn back to Valinor and the choice to cross the Helcaraxa, because they were not yet at the Helcaraxa and didn't really know what it meant and what it might cost, right? So they've made the decision to go on. They get to the Helcaraxa. So now they've gotten to the Helcaraxa. We're looking at the grinding ice, and we're seeing exactly what a nightmare this whole land bridge that they've heard of is. They know it's going to be dangerous. They know that many of them are going to die. They're already freezing cold. And now they're confronted with the question, why is this worth it? Why should we go through with this? Why shouldn't we turn and go home now? Why, in the cost-benefit analysis of crossing the Helcaraxa, what are the benefits that justify the sacrifice and the hardship that they are preparing to go through? And here's where I think we get, wasn't it Angrod that we decided was going to be we need to take vengeance on Feanor and his people, right?
I think it was Angrod that we agreed. So he should make his speech here, that he is determined to go because he is not going to let anything stand between him and Feanor's people. We want, and there should be some general agreement with that. Because remember, we're going to want to set up at the very end in episode 13, when the army of Fingolfin arrives and there are the Feanorians there down by the lake. This should look like a battle that's about to happen, right? So we need to have the folks like Angrod who are ready, they've been gunning for this for a while, right? So yeah, I think that should be good. Now, Marielle also makes a really good point, with which I agree, that Elenwe, the wife of Turgon, who dies in the crossing of the Helcaraxa, Elenwe should be one of the ones advocating going on. As Marielle says, I want her actively involved in the decision that kills her, rather than just being the victim of the decision of the men around her. I agree that we do want that. Now, I don't think that Elenwe should be thirsting for the blood of the Feanorians. I don't think that's her motivation. That would seem a little bit odd in the wife of Turgon. As we have established Turgon as the visionary, sort of pious one, right? So, Marielle suggests that Elenwe foresees that her family has a great destiny in Middle-earth, and so they should go forward. Yeah, Marielle, that's got to be one of the main arguments, right? One of the main arguments is it's not that crossing the Helcaraxa is shrewd, right? It's that crossing the Helcaraxa is necessary. It is our destiny to return to Middle-earth. That is the way that our path is laid, and if this is the path that we must tread in order to get there, then so be it. This is what we have to do. So that sense of necessity, that sense of doom, I think has to be one of the major reasons that they choose to go. Are there any other arguments, Dave, that you can think of that we should have people raise? The, we want to get back at Feanor reason, it is our destiny to return to Middle-earth and we must do so, whatsoever the cost. Anything else that should be raised?
We don't want to return with our tails between our legs.
Right. That's what led them. That's one of the main things that led them to go on the first time, right? Last episode. Is that still enough? See, that's the argument that I think is going to waver here.
When you add it on to everything else, maybe?
Right. Maybe. Yeah. Right. As Marielle points out, there will be some people who will say, look, we can't, what choice do we have? Right. It's like the devil or the deep blue sea here. We can't go home. We have been cast out. So yeah. Yeah.
It does, when you actually do the thought experiment, though, it does sort of raise the question of why would anyone do this?
Right. Well, exactly.
Is there anything that's actually a good enough reason?
Right. Exactly. And this is why this is why this is so interesting, right? Because many of the reasons that seemed like good enough reasons to set out from Valinor are going to fall flat here, right? Take, for instance, Galadriel's desire to establish realms under her own command, right? I mean, seriously, is establishing a realm under your own command worth this? Are you going to be faced with the Helcaraxa and be like, I don't know, man, but I really want that realm. I think it's totally worth it, right? That's not enough to make them cross the Helcaraxa. There has to be more. And that's what I think is so cool about this moment, is that it pushes past those more superficial reasons.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, does this really boil down to the reason that the bulk of the Noldor go is because they're following somebody. So
right.
Somebody has to give them a speech that whips them up. And then the people that they're following, each of them has to have individual reasons that I think on the surface still don't sound like good enough reasons. And it has to be explained by that, basically each of these guys are just kind of a little crazy or obsessive.
Right.
Maybe there isn't actually a particularly good reason to do this, and that there's something a little worrisome and concerning that Galadriel or Fingolfin or whoever we want to make the driving force, the fact that they're so insistent on doing it maybe isn't necessarily a good thing.
Or at least it's uncertain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's at least dubious. It's at least reasons that are available to be doubted by others, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
There's sort of there are things that maybe there's something in the abstract that seems noble
Right.
and admirable about, like, well, we're going to show everyone that we can't be defeated and we can conquer the Hellcrack, and oh, that's a very impressive thing to do, but when weighed against the cost of all the people dying along the way, really calls into question whether these leaders have the best interest of the Noldor people
Right.
in mind. Like, yeah, I think it has to be very uncertain.
And
I don't think there's going to be any reason we can give where just rationally explained people are going to look and say, oh, naturally we need to do this.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't think we should try to do that.
Yes. I agree. I mean, we want to make it, I don't think we want to make it look shady, and we don't want to make it look just bewildering. Like, why are these morons doing this? But to have there be like cause to doubt, because remember, those doubts are going to surface. We're going to have, this is one of the cool things that I like about dividing up the Helcaraxa over 3 episodes, essentially, right? Is that we're going to come back to them again in the next episode, and there's going to be some people who are like, okay, does anybody else have second thoughts about whether or not this was a good idea? Maybe we should still turn back, right? I mean, that's got to be happening. And so having some of these things come to the surface, I think that's worth it. Chris Graham has a really good summary here. He suggests that motivations include loyalty to their leaders who are going over to the Noldor and to others who are suffering, revenge, desire for revenge against Fëanor and Morgoth as well, a feeling of shame about the events of the kinslaying. There can be some who might even voice it, that like there's something actually like purgatorial in the crossing of the Helcaraxa. Like, yes, we're going to suffer, but don't we deserve it? Maybe by there are some of them who actually are sort of feeling that by continuing through the sufferings of the Helcaraxa, they are like punishing themselves. It's like purging their sin and that when they emerge from the other side, it'll like be better in some way. I'm not saying that that's rational, but Dave, as you're pointing out, like the reasons don't all have to be perfectly rational, right? Atonement, Chris, exactly. Many who've, and Chris also lists, hope and a desire for a better future for Middle Earth. Those who do have, and I agree with Marielle that Elenwe should be among these who have a sort of a positive vision for what's going to happen, that they have a positive destiny to fulfill. They're meant to go to Middle Earth. So I mean, I think that all of those things could come up. And the lovely thing about all of those is that, Dave, as you were suggesting, every single one of those reasons is something that you can easily doubt and argue against when things get really, really bad, right? None of those is a slam dunk. None of those is obvious.
They all seem like excellent reasons for relocating to the northeastern of Amman, or of taking a stroll up and having a look-see at the ice bridge. But I think once you're in the thick of it and like the guy next to you just froze to death, right. I think they're all going to seem pretty hollow and flimsy.
Yeah. And that's going to be interesting. It's one of the things we're going to need to be thinking about in the third sequence, or at the end of the second sequence. What keeps them going on, right? Because that's not the same question, right, Dave? Exactly as you're pointing out. What leads them to make the decision to undertake the crossing of the Helcaraxa does not answer the question, what keeps them going when so many of them are starting to die and everything looks horrible. So we will need to think about that separately, but that's good. Okay. Now we do, the suggestion was that we kill off Elenwe in this episode. I agree. I think that would work really well. Especially sort of poignant, as she has been one of the spokespeople for prophetic hope for the future, and that going is a positive good, and then she dies. I agree with the idea of her falling into the ice, like just the ice breaking and her sliding down into like the icy water and drowning. That seems to me to be like that. I don't want her like, eaten by a creature or something like that. I think, having her drown sounds good. And that certainly can be done with her message of hope. That can be done really interestingly, I think. So I really like that as sort of the culmination of the Halkaraxa subplot of this episode. So cool. Yeah, good. Sounds good. And then briefly, this is the last thing to touch on, and then we're going to go. So the Feanorian storyline, a lot of the things that are on this slide are only really relevant as we're building up to the battle. We'll come back to this stuff next time. But we do want to remind people that the Feanorians are there, right? So we want to have at least one scene where the host of Feanor is moving up the Firth of Drengist and scouting things out. I think maybe even having them arrive at Mithrim would be fine, right? So just having a scene of them crossing the land and Feanor kind of looking out over Dorloman and seeing the Lake of Mithrim and saying something really arrogant and cocky to Curufin and stuff would I think is kind of enough for the Feanorians in this episode, because then we're preparing. We have shown the scene, right, of the battle that's going to happen in the next episode. So cool. All right. And that's it. That's it. Again, we have very little with the Feanorians this time, but that's all right. Dave, we forgot to do our discussion of Angrod. That's okay. Let's do it next time. When we come back to Feanor next time, we'll do it then. We failed to. Yeah, there was a really interesting comment on our ideas of the burning alive of Angrod and the burning of the ships, which I really wanted to talk about and address. But like I said, we'll do that as a segue into going back to Feanor next time. That'll be fine. I think it was only our instinctive sense that it would have been a non sequitur in this episode that kept us from thinking of it.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. We didn't forget.
We didn't forget. It was totally strategic. Okay, cool. All right, so questions for next time. So remember, next time we're doing the battle with Feanor. So our next session is on Friday, February 9th. We're back to our regular 2-week schedule now. So February 9th, session 15, episode 10. Yeah, 10. This was 9. 10. Okay. So one question that I have as we're thinking about the battle: how do we distinguish the different sons of Feanor? It's time, right? We have some of them who are distinguished already, right? Maedhros, through his relationship with Fingon, we've already established that. Celegorm as the master of Huon, we've started with him, right? But we're going to want to make the surviving sons of Feanor into more distinguishable characters. We want them less of a throng, I'm thinking. Curufin we already started with, so we've gotten to be, but there are some characters, some of the sons of Feanor we've done nothing with at all, right? Like Caranthir, for instance. I don't think we've done a single thing with Caranthir yet. And as we begin to prepare to move into season 4, we're going to want to set some stuff up with them. And it seems to me this moment, right, when we're just with we're going to spend most of an episode just with the Feanorians, is a really good opportunity for us to think about the different personalities of the 6 surviving sons of Feanor and the kinds of actions that they would take, and how we would make those up. So I just want to challenge people to be thinking about that. How can we work the development of the sons of the characters of the sons of Feanor into this episode? Then second, how do we handle the Balrogs in battle? We are finally, this will be the first time. Is that true? Yes. This will be the first time we will have had the Balrogs in battle against elves, right? the Balrogs were involved in the battle with the Valar, at the end of season 1. But this is the first time that we have seen Balrogs in battle against incarnate races. And we have to decide how we're going to handle that. The big question, of course, is big Balrog versus little Balrog. Are we going to make the Balrogs the big, few and enormously powerful, as they appear, when we meet the one in Moria and that kind of thing? Or are we going to go, as many of you know, in Tolkien's earlier work, there were Balrogs all over the place, and Turin single-handedly kills dozens of them in the fall of Gondolin, in the battle at Gondolin. So, or not Turin, Tuor. My apologies, misspeaking. Anyway, we need to talk about how we're going to do Balrogs. Are they going to be, is Balrog to elf in battle going to look like Ent to orc, right? I mean, are they going to be swatting the elves around in battle, or is it going to be more of an equal struggle? How many of them are there going to be in battle? How are we going to handle this? So I think we need to kind of figure out the Balrog question for next time. And then what exactly is happening in the south now? The dwarves are coming in and cleaning up. Where are we? Who is where? We just need to make sure, we've got a lot to clean up and keep track of. And I want to make sure that we are both keeping track of our players, right, in the south, but also focusing on Sauron and Sauron's role in moving his plans forward here, as things are coming apart up here in the north. There was talk of having Morgoth recall Sauron and his forces from the south to help against the Noldor in the north. How are we going to fit that in with the plans that we have for what Sauron is doing in the south and stuff? I want to make sure that we think all that stuff through thoroughly. So, okay. So those are the things that I wanted to challenge you guys to think about for next time. Thanks, everybody, for all of your contributions and discussions. I think we made a lot of really excellent progress today. I'm pretty happy with the death of Denethor and the great slaughter of the Green Elves. I think we have some really great material here, which I'm pretty excited about. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dave. I know Trish had to step out. She had a work thing she had to go to, so she's not with us here anymore. But thanks, Dave, for discussion today.
I'm very excited about. This is what's great about this whole endeavor. We get to dig into things like the first battle of Valerian. That's not really detailed in the text, and then we get to imagine what that would be like and come up with a really cool story.
Yeah, really fun. Awesome. So thanks, everybody, and I'm going to switch over to my Grifflet stream now, but I will see you guys soon, and I will say, as always, thanks for listening, and Godspeed.